Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Today, I'm John Henkel, your host, here with several others who are behind the scenes, ready to take over your questions. We are going to talk about CEDIA Expo coming up in a couple of weeks. We just finished InfoComm, it seems like, and now all of a sudden we have CEDIA coming up. So we're going to talk about some really cool products we have on display. And if you are coming to the show, of course, you're going to want to stop by and see those. Otherwise, here's some information. You can check them out and check out videos we'll do at the show as well. So first up, our new M4350 AV switches. We debuted those at InfoComm. We're also going to talk about updates to the awesome Engage controller that controls those switches. So we'll show you some things for that. And then, ta-da, we have a brand new router. This is just released today, so it's live on the website today. And we have Iffy Chen, our senior product line manager or director of product line management. I forget, Iffy, but you've been awesome in getting this router to the market. And we have that today for the commercial residential markets, the PR460. We'll talk about that. And also we'll show you, refresh you on our Pro Wi-Fi access points for this channel as well. And we'll talk about those design services. If you didn't know we offer those, we'll talk about that. And we have some of those people on the call today as well. So we have Rich and Keith who can answer some questions. We have the questions box so you can answer along the way. We'll try to answer them as we go along, but we also may pause at the end to take your questions at the final part of this. Whole thing should be about a half an hour or so. We're here for as long as you need to be, but that's the lay of the land. So first things up, let's talk about our new award-winning M4350 series of switches. These came out just at InfoComm. It's two waves of these switches, and this complements our line that started with the 4250. And then we had the 4300 switches out for a while. Also these brand new 4350s here. And then also the top of the line are M4500 switches. So we have every switch that you could ever want, I think, for AV over IP. With the 4350s, you'll see some of the specs coming up. These are just monster switches, up to 100 gigs for the port speeds. Just really powerful. They get a modular power supply, which we didn't have in the 4250s. So the 4300s came out years ago. If you weren't familiar with those, that's what started us down the AV over IP path for getting all kinds of audio and video, multicast video across the network. And then that still is out there. Those are still the workhorses, if you will, for AV over IP and Pro AV and commercial and residential applications. Good for 1, 10G, and 40G uplinks. The 4250 came out next then, a couple of years ago now, and that was really targeting the 1 gig AV over IP applications. A lot of audio, a lot of the other video applications when it's just 1G. They have 10 gig uplinks, so you can still do that. But those are the ones that look more like an AV appliance, right? They have the ports in the back, although you can reverse mount them if you want. And those just a sleeker look for an AV rack in a home, a high-end residential area or something like that. That's the 4250s. We call those the AV line. And that really brought into us the idea of this AV OS. I'm calling it AV OS now, not just the AV user interface, because it's pulled off. And you can use this AV OS, this ease of setting switches up with our profiles that you assign to different ports on any of these switches, except the 4500. But the 4250, the 4350 all have this ease of use with that AV interface, the AV OS, I'm calling it, with certified profiles. They all do this thing we call NETGEAR IGMP Plus, which means that when you plug something into the network, it will not flood the network. So we hold those requests at that switch and make sure that it doesn't flood the network. That's our improvement to IGMP Plus. So this is now our product line for AV over IP applications. 3 different main switch lines, and the 4500 is really the top of the rack. That's your aggregate switch, right? So that's going to be your core rack using MLAG and other technologies to be able to get to coordinate all the different edge switches down below. So let's look at first some of the differences between the 3 main model differences. Okay, the 4250, 4350s. On the left side, you see difference of PoE plus. That's number 1 to think about. They have varying levels of PoE plus or plus, and the plus in this case is 90 watts per port. There's a PoE plus standard for 60 watts per port. But this one, some of these switches go all the way up to 90 watts per port. They also, the 4250s are best for AVB and Milan work. They have 4250s have a license you need to buy for that. 4300s are not your switch for those applications. And the new 4350s, also PoE plus and plus, but the AVB license is built in automatically. So no separate license is needed. That's a big difference. That makes things a lot easier. And the fan management, that's the other thing we introduced with the 4250s. In some models, in some cases, you can turn the fans off on those models. They operate so coolly, and there's different settings for quiet mode or cool mode or off even. And we'll turn it back on, of course, if conditions change. The 4350s have some of that, except you can't turn them off. They're such powerhouses that they need some fans on, but you can go to quiet mode and get really, really reduced acoustic noise from those switches. And that's all published on the data sheets and stuff too. You can see that, but they're really much quieter than other models of the 4300 series. And then you see the 3 columns here. So the basics of differences really dealing with bandwidth and stacking. So the 1G to 10G, like I kind of touched on in the earlier slide for the 4250s, 43s, the 1 to 10G, but also 40G on a 96X model. That's a really great modular model. And the 4300s are stackable. The 4250s are not. The 4350s now get us into 2.5G, 10, 25G, and 100 gig, and they are stackable as well. So those are the main differences for bandwidth and stacking. And our design teams, of course, can help you pick the right switch for your application. But there's some good guidelines right there. For power supplies, this is a big new thing too for the 4350s. The 42s had internal power supply and no redundancy whatsoever. The 4300s had a modular PSUs in some models and give you that power redundancy. But now the 4350s really make it special. And we'll talk about this in a second. I'll show you some differences. You have an internal power supply in each unit, but also you have modular power supplies. And depending on the unit, you can have 1 or 2. The half rack models don't have this, but the full rack width models of the 4350 give you the power redundancy and also a separate PSU for more PoE budget. So you can really do a lot with these switches. They're pretty powerful. And as I mentioned, we'll take a look at that extra power supply and what that means to the power budget coming up in a slide or two. And then the chassis style. So the 4300s are your traditional IT look, but the 4250 and 4350 have a little bit more of an AV look, although the 4350, the newest ones, have the ports in the front still, but you could reverse mount it, no big deal. But the 4250s are really meant for the ports and the power connectors, everything in the back, and just the slick front unit. But of course, again, you can reverse mount them if you want. So lots of options there. Those are the main differences in the switch series that we have, 4250, 43, and 4350. That's the highlight of these. You look at the similarities among these, and there's a fair amount. So if you're wondering if one series has less capability as far as features and that goes, really no big deal. They're all very similar in this. They all have that, what I mentioned earlier, we call IGMP plus. That's our own interpretation, our own improvement to IGMP for multicasting. And that gets you a lot of different technologies here. We have auto trunk, we have auto lag as well. So when you connect a couple of switches together, we will automatically set that up for you to make it so much easier to set up a network. No uplinks to configure. Set your VLANs accordingly, which you can do with the Engage controller across multiple switches, plug them together, and you get the auto trunk, auto lag, and that's a huge time saver. I'm not the IT guy, as you guys probably know, but those that have programmed it say MLAG and other things you have to do for lagging switches is painful, I guess. So that's a huge time saver. And then all of these, we're focusing on your AV profiles, all your AV audio, video, lighting profiles. We have all these built into these switches, built into the user interface that's on the switch itself, the web interface, but also through the Engage controller. And these get you certified profiles with our over 200 and some partner manufacturers, encoder, decoder people, lighting controls as well, as we've mentioned. Those profiles have been certified and configured from the get-go, from the factory, so that they are ready to go and you can trust them that they're going to set up things correctly. If you're doing things like NDI, AVB, Crestron, AMX, Visionary, Shure, whatever, you name a manufacturer, we've spoken with them, we've certified them for use with our switches. So that gives you that peace of mind that they're going to work out of the box with these profiles perfectly. And then central management. I've talked about Engage controller. If you haven't seen that, you really should go download it with your NETGEAR switches, with your 4250s or 43 or 4350s. You can download Engage controller for free, netgear.com/engage, and check it out for yourself. So then you'll be able to see all the goodness for a single switch or multiple switches and the profiles and everything configured onboarded. It makes it so much easier. So those are the similarities between the switches. I'm seeing a long question here from Lucas. Okay, I'll have to take a look at that in a little bit. Sorry, Lucas. We'll check a look at that in a little bit, and maybe one of my SEs can take a look at that too. Let me push on for a moment here. Let's highlight one of the best of the best switches of this new 4350 line just for a moment. And what I want to do here is point out the modularity of the power supplies. But take a look at this monster switch, 48 ports, PoE++, 90 watts per port, with a massive 3,314 watt budget for PoE. So you can power a few things with that switch. And this one goes up to 2.5 gigs, 5, 10 gig. It's got the 4 SFP plus ports. Those are 25 gigs. So you see 4 of those. You can do what? 25 times 4, that's 100, right? 100 gigs of uplink. So that's pretty high powered for this, for sure. It does AVB without having to lag. I guess that's something that typically have to do. So that is doesn't have to happen on our 4350 switch on this one, and others the same way. Great for some emerging 2.5 gig video over IP applications. But really, like I mentioned, what we want to talk about here are the modular power supplies. So there's an internal power supply, you can see there. And then on this one, you have options for 2 additional power supplies. What that means is a little bit of an eye chart, and I realize I didn't add the slide deck to the presentation yet. I'll do that before, after we finish. So come back to this webinar page and you'll see the slide deck there linked for downloadable. For the full width models, they have that one internal power supply and then an external power supply slot. And depending on which one you pick, there's several choices of power supplies. You can get up to a fair amount of PoE budget, and again, have that redundancy of a second power supply. So there's a little eye chart that shows you. Bottom line here is you want to make sure you work with our Pro AV design team or your supplier, your AV distributor, to make sure you get the right power supply you need for the chassis, and also getting you enough of the redundancy or PoE budget. But we have options here, and that's been a really good thing to have on the switch line for sure. Okay, so that's just an eye chart. Oh, speaking of eye charts, here's the even better one. The main thing here really, and all this info is on the website, of course. The main thing here is the green models are available now. So the 4350s came in 2 waves. The first wave is released. Those are available now in distribution. The second wave of 5 models is coming out later in the year. And of the second models there, you see some powerhouses, but something we've talked about for the broadcast industry is the SMPTE ST2110 protocol. That'll be available on a couple of the models coming out in wave 2. So if you do some broadcast work with that 2110 protocol, that'll be supported. It has new chipset and things for us. So we're coming to market with those end of this year. That'll be phase 2. So you see the ordering chart, ordering SKUs, things like that. Everything's available on the website now to look at specs and other images of the products, all 12 models. But of course, only the first 7 there are available in distribution first for now. And you see, of course, our great warranty and all that. So that's all there. That's just a little more particulars about that 4350 line. And what Laurent Messier, our product line manager, who couldn't be here, he's taking a holiday at the moment. He's really articulated that one of the things he worked on with the new AV software has been to solve some interoperability problems. So there's been some issues when you have AVB and Dante, or Dante and AES, or QSYS, AES 67 on a switch, and they don't always play well together. Well, we've conquered those problems. And now with our AVOS, we're able to do that, and you can have them on the same switch. The particulars of that I'll have to leave to the technical staff, but I know that you can configure a switch and use AVB and Dante and AES 67 QSYS on the same switch. Different VLANs, of course, but all that configuration is possible now since we've worked with the manufacturers to make sure that that is working. So that's a big thing, I guess. You don't have to have a separate switch if you're just doing AVB work, and have a separate switch for Dante. Same switch will work, and of course, it's only on a NETGEAR switch. Speaking of OS stuff, we've talked about Engage. If you haven't seen it, as I mentioned, go to download it. But the newest version, we're calling 1.2. I believe it's really 1.166. But this has upgraded several things, pulled things out of the IT configuration that are now available into the AV configuration with Engage. It does give you some really good things here that you had to do manually before, or had to go back to the IT interface. And we're always working on improving that. There's software, so we can update that much quicker. So that's coming up. Also with Engage, what we've done is some custom profiles. We've had this a while ago with the Shure profile, where it will easily detect the Shure devices in your network. We're doing the same thing with AMX and Crestron and Visionary Solutions. So it will configure the ports for you automatically and show you a little icon on those ports. I think these 3 profiles are still coming up. They're not quite released yet, I believe, but they're coming up. And that's more of that work with our AV manufacturer partners to make sure we make it easier for you to configure your switch, because it's not always easy. So all that stuff is built in, plus a little goodness of showing you which ports are configured properly for that. And we'll do more of that automatically for you. So that's our Engage updates. Now we have coming up today, today's the first day it's available right now, today, our new PR460X router. And this is a pro router. And I'm going to see if Iffy is available here. Iffy, are you available for us? There she is. Been hanging out.
Yeah, thank you, John. Go ahead.
So this is their router. This is your product, your baby, coming to market. They bring in all the bullet points. Yeah. So first, just a couple the top end features here and what it does. Talk us through a little bit about the PR460X.
Yeah, definitely. So NETGEAR is proudly introducing this PR460X Pro router with 10 gig multi-gigabit dual WAN capability into the market. Basically, it will serve our residential and Pro AV market together with our switches and wireless products. So this router can do dual WAN failover to protect the internet connection, and then also it can. There are 2 WAN ports, right? The first primary WAN is 2.5 gig, with the secondary WAN being configurable LAN WAN ports of multi-gig up to 10 gig speed. And there are other 3 LAN ports. All of them can do 2.5 gig plus 1 10 gig fiber uplinks to using the fiber connection to your core network. And this just shows a little bit of the tech specs, port configurations of this Pro router. Some key software features are dual WAN failover and IPsec side-to-side VPN to connect to different routers in different locations. And it supports up to 8 VLANs to do the VLAN separation for your connection network. And it can also do DHCP up to 8 DHCP servers. It uses PPPoE ISP login, and as well as some generic firewall features such as NAT, SIP, LG, software DMZ, traffic rules, port forwarding, etc. And just to mention that it's the same width as our M4250, M4300 switches, which is the full width rack mountable case. The beauty of it is that it can be reversely mounted into the rack mount cabinet. So whichever side you would like it to be facing in the front, whether it's the clean front panel or the ports up in the front, just mount it as you wish. It can be managed with local GUI as well as inside cloud.
Yeah, this is really powerhouse. And this, we were talking before the show with some of the SEs that are on here, Keith and Rich, bragging about their connections to their home. A lot of homes are getting 1 gig and greater, but businesses as well start having 10 gig to the office now. And so this really allows you to take advantage of that along the way. And I don't think there's many other routers right now that have this dual WAN and multi-gig capability. This is a simple powerhouse. Like she said, it's actually based on the 4250 chassis, one of the models. It's really narrow. It's not that deep at all, and in full rack width. So this is available now wherever you buy AV gear. You will be able to buy this Pro router as well, and that's coming up. So that's pretty sweet. Thank you, Iffy, for that.
Hey, John. A couple of questions have come in.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that.
So, yes, the PR460X is insight manageable and able. Yes. Mm-hmm. And also, the DHCP reservations are available on the router, and I believe it supports up to 8 different VLANs.
Yes, 8 different VLANs, 8 DHCP reservations.
Correct. Also,
and this question is actually asking the 1.1.6.6. I guess it's engage.
That's an engage. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Correct. Also, the previous question about the Arista and Cisco switches.
Yeah, let's talk about some of this. So frame the question first, if you would, so
Yeah.
everybody else can't see the question, Keith. Thank you.
So right here, they had an earlier question about the AV line, NETGEAR. And the question is for more intense environments, bandwidth reservations are a big topic with IGMP-based deployments in spine and leaf. So the difference with the M4350s is that they are a full line rate switch. We don't use oversubscription with those switches. So they'll be vastly different from the Arista and Cisco in that they use oversubscription. You can do multiple PTP clocks on these switches. So you would just set up a profile with a VLAN and set up your different PTP clocks with that. As far as SPG boundary clocks, not exactly sure what those will do on our switches, but I know that our Pro AV team can work with you on getting those set up and work with you on their full capabilities.
That's great. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, that was way over my head for sure. But I think what's good is that what I take from this is that, like you said, we don't oversubscribe things. We have full line rate on these switches. So whatever we say is they're capable of, they can handle without a problem. So it's not an issue for us. I like those sort of things.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get back into where we were a little bit here. And I think that was about it for our router. We had a couple of slides there. Yeah. And any more questions come up, certainly ask the questions, use the questions panel, and we will take them as we can, or like I say, answer them at the end. But Iffy, I think that's it for the router. But now we have to talk about some access points, and let me set these up a little bit if you don't mind. For the Pro Wi-Fi access points, so we make NETGEARs in your home, we're in your business, all kinds of access points and switches. We have a special group of access points called Pro Wi-Fi. And those are the ones really for commercial residential applications. They have the latest technologies, of course, 6 and 6E Wi-Fi standards. And 6E standard gets you into a 6 gigahertz band. We've done some other webinars on this before, so I won't go through all this now, but it does open up a lot of bandwidth for you for devices that can take advantage of 6 gigahertz. And of course, all of our access points will be backward compatible with every other previous standard. Maybe not every other, but most other previous standards. The cool thing about these access points is they have a 2.5 gigabit port. So as we're talking about that Pro router coming in with multi-gig ports, you can connect the router to your access point and get that 2.5 gig connection between those two. And then between your devices and the access point, you get high speed there and really have things running, humming along, and make sure you're getting the most for your money. They have this instant mesh coverage. So these are Insight managed. So you can use Insight, our remote management tool, to then configure them together and create a mesh network that blankets your area, your home or business, with awesome wireless coverage. They also have the latest security features, of course, up to WPA3. Indoor and outdoor models, you see the two represented here, but there's an outdoor model as well, and a bunch of SSIDs per access point per radio. So you can really segment that traffic and VLAN, basically VLAN stuff through your wireless access point. So those are the Pro Wi-Fi access points. Our design services, though, are things that you may not be aware of that we offer for free. So we have Pro AV design services for your wired networks, mostly for AV applications, and Pro Wi-Fi design for, yes, pretty obviously, your wireless design, wireless networks. They both give you cream of the crop, high-level service technicians, service engineers, and product line managers are on these email addresses as well. And they will help you figure out what product is right for the wireless stuff. Keith and I did a great webinar a few weeks ago on what this entails. They give you a site survey, a very detailed survey of the reach and each frequency in the radio, each radio in the access point, and what that coverage will be for the area, depending on how you place them. We use a third-party tool called Ekahau for that. So that's something that is for free again, and gives you confidence and peace of mind of where you place these access points and the coverage you'll get from that. Same for Pro AV Design. You're not sure of all the endpoints you're using, what kind of bandwidth you need, what uplink ports, all that stuff. Our team will take care of you for that. Pro AV Design at NETGEAR.com or Pro Wi-Fi Design at NETGEAR.com. And the website there, you can also upload some files. So we'll need like building materials and floor plans, stuff like that. But if you want more, check out on Bright Talk here, our webinar platform. Check out the webinar that Keith and I did a few weeks ago. That should help answer some questions. And then I got a bunch of links for you. So here we go. If you're looking for more info in general on AV applications, NETGEAR.com/AV. Our training academy, we got some new courses coming up. I got to wrap up those quickly. We have some Pro Wi-Fi courses coming up and Insight courses as well. We have some great network training for AV as well. You can get your SDVOE certification through there. And even if you aren't doing SDVOE work, that's just some really good information there. That's available on our academy. And you can get some Avixa credits for all these courses too. So NETGEAR.academy, as I mentioned, the Pro AV Design is Pro Wi-Fi Design as well. We have a community place on our website. You can ask questions from the community, check and see about other answers for that. Here's links to all the product pages. We make it really simple, NETGEAR.com/the model series, and you can go right to any product page if you want to. And then before it gets to be too long here, we're about a half an hour in. I want to make sure you do know about some things. If you're going to the CEDIA show in a couple of weeks, stop by booth 3547. But also, we've had a huge response to these classes. We have several hundred people signed up for these classes. Hopefully they'll all show up. So if not, there's plenty of room for you. But on Thursday, September 7th in room 707, that's in Denver, in room 707 on Thursday from 1 to 2:30 is Laurent's wildly popular network design course where you learn a lot from him and he'll answer all your questions. And then 3 to 4, Douglas Chung, our former wireless product manager, now kind of transferred over to IFE, but Doug will answer all of your wireless questions, your Wi-Fi 7 questions, and some other wireless stuff. We're going to come up with some really good material for you to understand what Wi-Fi 7 is, and it's coming. So you need to understand what that is. So that's coming up at CEDIA. Anything else? Anybody else have anything to say from our team here? Thank you all.
So there's one final question
Thank you.
in the queue. Sorry. Does
Please, I can take.
You got that, Effie? Okay, go ahead.
Yes. The question is, does the PR460X support remote VPN also? In terms of the VPN, it supports IP6 side-to-side VPN at the moment. That's the answer.
Okay. There you go.
Just want to add on to the PR460X. I mentioned the rack mountable capability, but you're also welcome to just place it on desktop, as it's a pretty neat, sleek, narrow form factor.
Yeah, that's something I didn't put in a slide there. I need to put that width slide showing how not very wide.
Yes, it's about it's about 100 millimeter.
So yeah, it's really not much.
About 3 inches. Yeah.
Thank you for that. The quick change.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All righty. So I think we answered all the questions at the moment. We're still here. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about today, our switches, our router, Pro AV Design, Pro Wi-Fi Design. If not, we will let you get about your day. We appreciate your time here as always. And you can reach out to those email addresses, Pro Wi-Fi or Pro AV Design. Check us out on the community. Find us on LinkedIn, of course. I will go back after this webinar is ended, and I'll add the slide deck on there as a downloadable PDF too. So check back to that link for the webinar. And if you're around at CEDIA, stop by the booth 3547 and introduce yourself to me, and I'll be there and I'll be happy to see you. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate your time again. Take care.